Blessings and peace, beloved. Thank you for joining us once again for our Great Controversy Devotional series, where we are using the book Christ Triumphant that deals with the issues that are pertaining to this great struggle between Christ and Satan. The devotional thought for today, April 17th, is entitled, God's Law Not Given for Israel Only. If you will obey and the scripture reading is Exodus chapter 19, verse 5 and 6. If you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. God purposed to make the occasion of speaking his law a scene of awful grandeur, in keeping with his exalted character. Preparations were made according to the command, and in obedience to a further injunction, Moses directed that a barrier be placed about the mount, that neither man nor beast might intrude upon the sacred precinct. On the morning of the third day, as the eyes of the people were turned toward the mount, its summit was covered with a thick cloud which grew more black and dense, sweeping downward until the entire mountain was wrapped in darkness and awful mystery. Then a sound as of a trumpet was heard, summoning the people to meet with God. And Moses led them forth to the base of the mountain. From the thick darkness flashed vivid lightnings, while peals of thunder echoed and re-echoed among the surrounding heights. The thunders ceased. The trumpet was no longer heard. The earth was still. There was a period of solemn silence. And then the voice of God was heard, speaking out of the thick darkness that enshrouded him as he stood upon the mount surrounded by a retinue of angels. The Lord made known his law. Jehovah revealed himself, not alone in the awful majesty of the judge and lawgiver, but as the compassionate guardian of his people. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And this is profound, how God began the commandments in speaking for the first time to his people, to all of his people. And he identified himself as a deliverer from bondage. When God speaks to your heart, when God speaks to your soul, he identifies himself as deliverance, as your deliverance from bondage. The bondage of sin, of fear, of doubt. God is your deliverer. He whom they had already known as their guide and deliverer, who had brought them forth from Egypt, making a way for them through the sea, and overthrowing Pharaoh and his hosts, who had thus shown himself to be above all the gods of Egypt. He it was who now spoke his law. The law was not spoken at this time exclusively for the benefit of the Hebrews. God honored them by making them the guardians and keepers of his law. So God's law is not just for Jews, was not just for the Jews. God's law was for every human being. And his law preceded the Jewish nation, because sin was in existence before the Jewish nation. And sin is the breaking of God's law. And so Adam and Eve broke God's law. They didn't break the Jews' law because there were no Jews before Adam and Eve. So God's law is for all people because all people have sinned. The Jews were just the custodians of the law, whom God's law affected their very culture and lifestyle. But it was to be held as a sacred trust for the whole world. The precepts of the Decalogue are adapted to all humankind, and they were given for the instruction and government of all. 10 precepts, brief, comprehensive, and authoritative, cover the duty of human beings to God and to other humans, and all based upon the great fundamental principle of love. So God's law is based upon love. God's law, obedience to God's law, is how we express our love to Him. This is why Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. So if we love God, we will keep His commandments. If we don't love God, we will break His commandments. Blessings and peace.